I see the morning coming in your eyes. Jubilee, Jubilee. It's shining brighter than the sun in the sky. Jubilee, Jubilee. Yeah.
I hear the joy bells ringing in your voice. Jubilee, Jubilee. You're kind of singing, cutting through the noise.
Jubilee,
Jubilee.
oh Jubilee.
Jubilee. You're the kind of joy that I need.
It's shining brighter than the sun in the sky. Jubilee, Jubilee. Yeah. How do y'all feel today? We're good? Awesome. Well, we want you to know that you are always welcome here. You're celebrated. You're not just tolerated. We actually love and celebrate and accept and affirm every single person, no matter who you are, how you exist, who you love. You're welcome here. We love you. You're beautiful. And we'd love for you to sing these songs with us. We've got lyrics right here. So let's all sing it together. Oh, Jubilee. You're the kind of joy that I need. Oh, it's shining brighter than the sun in the sky. Jubilee, Jubilee. Oh, now you know it. Come on, let's sing it again. Oh, Jubilee.
Jubilee.
just a couple of announcements for you. First, next Sunday is Derek Webb's house show. It's going to be right in the gallery where we normally have our Sunday gatherings. You can buy tickets online for $20 and the show starts at 8 o'clock. The following Sunday evening, we have our GP karaoke event. That is Sunday, July 30th from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. For those of you online, we are going to be live streaming it so you can watch from home. Don't forget, this is going to be a potluck style event. So we are going to supply hot dogs, buns, and condiments, and you are going to bring your favorite appetizer, dessert, non-alcoholic beverage, and then we'll also open the wedge door to have additional beverages purchased if you want. Don't forget that if you're new, please fill out our Connect card. That is where you can sign up for our newsletter, and our newsletter goes out every Friday. It is always the most up-to-date information. Grace Point's goal is to create a safe, affirming, and transformative community. If you would like to become a part of financially sustaining the work that we do here, you can do so in 4 ways. You can text any dollar amount to 84321. You can go to gracepoint.net/give. You can scan the QR code that's on your screen, or you can Venmo us at GracePointTN. And just don't forget that Grace Point has an E on the end.
Blessed are the ones who do not bury all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky falling stars. Blessed are the wounded ones in mourning, brave enough to show off all their scars. Blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come again. Blessed are the ones who walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. Blessed are the ones who fight for justice, longing for the coming day of peace. Blessed is the soul that thirsts for righteousness, welcoming the last, the lost, and least.
Come on, sing it with us.
The kingdom is yours. Will come again. The kingdom is yours. still have strength to love their enemies. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come.
Come on, sing it again. The kingdom is yours.
The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. You can be seated.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day it is. Grace Point, we are so glad you're here with us for our online-only gathering this morning. Today we are continuing a series we began last week called Rhythm, Spiritual Practices for Progressive Christians. But before we jump into that, just let you know what's going on and where we are in the world. I'm currently at the recording of this in my kitchen, but on this day, Sunday, I'm at Wild Goose. A bunch of other people from Grace Point are at Wild Goose, have been all weekend. And actually this morning, I am also going to be speaking at Watershed Church in Charlotte. Watershed is a progressive, affirming, inclusive, justice-oriented, beautiful community. I've been friends with some of their pastors for quite a while now, and they agreed to host me on the Flannel Graph Tour. So I'm there talking about a chapter in my book today. And I'm also here with you. I'm achieving that two places at once kind of dream. And so today, what I want to talk about, funny enough, is this idea of rest as a spiritual practice. Rest as something that isn't just what our body needs, maybe, although our bodies do need it, but rest is something that we need at like a soul level, at a deeper level. Because just like our bodies get tired, so do our souls. Just like our bodies wear down, so internally, not just physically, but like who we are, we can become exhausted and fatigued, and rest is this gift that allows us to recharge and re-energize and reboost. So that's what I want to talk about today. Last week we began with this idea of experience, and I thought it fitting as we're online only and nobody's setting up chairs today and rehearsing anything, and wherever you are, I hope you're in your pajamas still, that it might be a good day for us to think about how rest might benefit us and what it might do for us, not just physically, but also spiritually. You know, I think it's interesting, the things we say when we don't know what to say. I don't know what you usually do, but often I have found myself over the years, like when you don't know what to say, you're in an awkward situation, you're with somebody you don't know really well, or you don't know what to talk about, you just sort of jump into the weather, like, oh, interesting weather we're having here. Yeah, it's really humid. It feels like it's late August, right? You just sort of jump into the weather, or maybe you jump into talking about sports ball. If the person you're talking to responds with, oh, sports ball, then you know you've both hit on something that you can talk about that maybe is not so awkward unless you are fans of rival teams and now you suddenly hate each other. But I also have noticed something else with me, and I've noticed it with lots of other people. And that is when you ask, how are you doing? Some version of, oh, I'm doing great, I'm doing fine, I'm just really busy. And it usually is also accompanied with, yeah, I can't wait till I get to X, Y, Z, and then things will slow down a little bit. I've seen memes that say being an adult is just saying, yeah, I can't wait till blank, because then it'll slow down a little bit. And you get to blank and it never slows down a little bit. I think it's telling, it's interesting that what we come up with when we don't really know what to say is just a reflection of, yeah, I'm just really busy all the time. And there's something about that busyness somehow is a sign or symbol or signifier of our value, of our worth. Like, can you imagine somebody like, how's it going? It's going great. I've had so much downtime lately. I'm feeling rest and return. I took a nap yesterday, went to the spa. It was really kind of lovely, right? Like, if somebody said that, there would almost be this like, gosh, why aren't you busy like everybody else? Busyness somehow gets attached to, well, if you're busy, you must be doing something important. And if you're doing something important, then you must be somebody important. And you must matter in ways that people who aren't as busy as you don't matter. Many of us are in a constant state of frenetic energy, just bouncing from one thing to the next. One call, one appointment, one meeting, driving across town, jumping on Zoom, doing all the things. We're just ping-ponging around from one thing to the next. That's true for us as a society as a whole. But now imagine what happens when you bring religion into it. Because when things are already a bit dicey and difficult, the worst thing you could possibly do probably is bring religion into it. Because when you bring religion into it, there's this feeling of guilt. Like, if I ever take a break, am I letting God down? Is there something that God needed me, wanted me, called, all that old language we grew up with? Like, am I somehow not fulfilling my purpose that God gave me? If I take a random nap, if I push pause, if I take a day off, if I say no to that thing, am I somehow letting God down? Is that what I'm doing? Because we always got to be working for the Lord, right? Like, that's the point. It's just being busy for Jesus 24/7. I can remember people growing up when people would say things like, well, if somebody was going to take a vacation, they would say, well, the devil never takes a vacation. And even as a kid, there was this part of me that was like, is that our litmus test though? Like, is the game plan to just do whatever the devil's doing? That just seems a bit off for me. And it's interesting when you think about how the Bible begins. Because in the very beginning of the Bible, what we're met with is rhythm. Right? It's this thing we're all probably, if we don't have it, we're longing for it. And if we have it, we're trying to figure out how to keep it, right? This balance, this rhythm, this flow to life, both like professionally, relationally, spiritually, just looking for this kind of flow to experience this, things moving to the right beat. And the Bible begins with rhythm. Notice the very beginning in Genesis 1:1. When God began to create the heavens and the earth was complete chaos. Does that describe anybody else's life right now? Just complete and total chaos. Darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of waters. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light, and God saw the light was good, and God separated light from darkness. God called the light day, the darkness night, and there was evening, there was morning, the first day. First observation, creation, in Genesis 1, God doesn't create ex nihilo. God doesn't create from nothing. There's already this chaos that exists. And what God's creative act is to bring order to the chaos, to bring rhythm to the chaos. And so the first day is light is called day, and darkness is night. And there was evening and there was morning, because that's the rhythm here. That's the Jewish way of keeping time, evening and morning, the first day. But then it keeps going. God does some other stuff. There's evening and morning the second day. God some other stuff. There's evening and morning the third day. God does some more stuff. Evening, morning the fourth day. Then there's the fifth day. And then there's the sixth day. And then after all of that, after 6 days of creativity, of making, of categorizing and ordering, of separating things that need to be separated, light from dark, land from sea, as God creates sky to hold back the primordial waters of chaos. Then, after the sixth day, God does something revolutionary in this creation story. In Genesis 2:1, the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. On the sixth day, God finished the work that he had done. And they rested on the seventh day from all the work they had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, made it holy, because on it God rested from all the work they had been doing in creation. 6 days, God has this rhythm of evening, morning, day, make, create, do, right? Just blah. And then rest. In the first creation story in the Bible, and that's because there are a couple in the beginning of Genesis. There's Genesis 1 to the beginning of Genesis 2, and then there's the rest of Genesis 2, which is a very different creation story. It's a very, very different creation story. Actually, the second creation story is the older of the two stories. But in this first story, it grounds the entire process of creation into a rhythm of rest and work, of doing, of making, and then enjoying and resting. That's the creative rhythm. That's the rhythm to creation. There's work, rest. Do, rest. It's built into creation. This idea, this rhythm of work and rest, of creating and enjoying, became a central part of the identity of the Jewish community. For them, it was known as Sabbath. In Hebrew, it's Shabbat, and it's a word that actually means to cease. It was such an important gift, idea, invitation, that it was enshrined in the Torah, of which Genesis is a part. But then later, in the giving of commands, in the giving of the law, essentially, the idea of Sabbath and observing the Sabbath and caring for the Sabbath was a central, important part. And this shows up at a couple different places. So there are different versions. There are about at least three different versions of the Ten Commandments in the first 5 books. One of them is more ceremonial, and it doesn't really look like the other two. But then there's Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy. And in Exodus and Deuteronomy, the reason for observing the Sabbath is different. And so if you're interested in Deuteronomy 5, you can go check that out. But I want to look at Exodus 20, and there's this command to observe the Sabbath. And then there's a reason given for it. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female enslaved people, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Now a couple things stand out here. Everybody and everything get to participate in this Sabbath rest. Now, there are some things we read in there, like your male or female enslaved people. No. The command should be don't enslave people, of course. In this text, there are some problems, big problems. But what I want to point out is that this command is universal in nature at this point. It even includes animals. Actually, if you keep reading in the Torah, you'll find out that there are even commands for things like a Sabbath year for the land. Like you plant the land so many years, like 6 years, but on the 7th, you let the land rest, because everybody, everything, all of creation, even creation itself, needs time to rest. So within a text like this, we see some things that are vestiges of some ugliness in the past that we must resist and condemn, especially as those ideologies inform some of the terribleness and toxicity we're seeing in our own world today. Absolutely. And yet there's also this glimmer of, if we could only see, if we're saying everybody deserves rest, then maybe we can make the next step to understanding that no human being should ever own another human being. And that is grounded in the very essence of creation. Everybody deserves rest. Everything and everyone. Now, here's what's also interesting. The fact that it's grounded in creation before any giving of any commands, it's just part of the rhythm of creation in Genesis. What that means is this is not a particular idea that is just applicable to one religion. This idea of rest as a central value, rest as something that is needed and necessary, that it is not just something that one group of people get to participate in. This is actually something for all people and all of creation. So as we're thinking about that, I just want to make a few observations about rest and what it is, what it does, and why it might be important as a practice. First, rest is a reminder of our humanity. It's a reminder that we are human beings. We are finite, not infinite. Have you ever met those people that feels like they just keep going and going and going? They're like Energizer bunnies full of energy. They're just beating that drum and hopping around all the time. Even they need rest. Even they wear down from time to time. Even they will catch themselves on an afternoon looking for a 5-hour energy because they're just yawning, because they are just spent. Every one of us, no matter what your energy level, you are not an endless supply of energy. You're a human being, and you need sometimes to power the thing down and rest. Being human is good. It's exactly what we are intended to be. And I would say that this idea of rest isn't just a command, but it's actually an invitation. It's an invitation to pause, to recenter ourselves, to reground ourselves, not just in all the identities we pick up in the world, but in the very essence of our humanity. It's a time to remember we are human. We have feelings, we have limits. We're human. That's who we are. We are not machines. We're not machines. I don't know if anybody else is kind of freaked out by all the AI stuff that's happening, because I watched Terminator as a kid, so I kind of know where this goes. But we aren't machines. And as corny as it sounds, we are not human doings. We are called human beings. We aren't simply here to produce things. We aren't simply here to tie our value and worth to how much we can achieve in a particular 24-hour period. We're also here to love. We're here to laugh. Oh my God, I almost said live, laugh, love. We are here to enjoy. We are here to experience the goodness of creation and everyone and everything in it. We aren't designed or built to eat every meal in the car in transit from one meeting or one place or one obligation to the next. We also have desperate need for moments of slow, long meals with lots of good food and lots of laughter and sunsets and taking deep breaths and being grateful that we have found other people to journey through life with. This past week, I've had some lung issue going on for most of the year. It's caused me to cough quite a bit. And I went in for a lung function test, and they put me in this tube that was way too small for my 6'8" frame. And they shut the door and they put this thing, and I had to breathe into it, and it would be breathe normally and then take deep breaths and hold it and then blow it out. And there was just I never pay attention to my breath in the way I paid attention to my breath in that little tube for this test. And I think there's something about being able to pause, take a deep breath, and to remember I'm a human being. I'm not an endless amount of energy. I cannot constantly be moving and flowing and giving away. So at some point, I need to pause. Because spiritual practices are ultimately about opening our hearts and about connecting us with the divinity that is already found within our humanity. And I think sometimes we move so fast, we never pause to connect with who we are, who the divine is in us. We just move from one thing to the next, which leads me to the second piece, which is rest is about self-care, and there's nothing wrong with self-care. Rest is about putting back together what has been broken open and poured out for other people. There's this, when Jesus is asked about the greatest command, it's interesting what he says. Here's the version from Mark. One of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that Jesus answered them well, he asked him, which commandment is the first of all? Like, which one, if I'm going to keep one, which is the most important one to keep? Jesus said, the first is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this. In other places in the Gospels, the writers add, the second is like it. So the second command, the second important command is actually like the first command. And that is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no command greater than these. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. This, and other versions of this story, they actually say they're both kind of the same. Later in the New Testament, Paul boils it down to this last one, love your neighbor as yourself. It's interesting, isn't it? Love your neighbor as yourself. I actually think a part of our problem in our society here in the States, in the U.S., is we actually do what this verse says pretty well, because we love ourselves really poorly. And as a result, we love our neighbors poorly. Because so many of us were indoctrinated in a fear-based religion that told us again and again and again how awful we were, how worthless we were, how depraved we were, how unworthy we are, how God can't even look at us or want to be near us because we're so terrible. That's just not true. And if we really want to begin to love our neighbors well, we have to first begin to love the us that God created. We have to begin to love ourselves, and part of that loving yourself is taking care of yourself. Now, self-care isn't about being selfish. Of course, we can end up being selfish, but then it's really not self-care. That's just selfishness and self-indulgence. But we can actually better do our lives and care for those around us when we have been cared for, when we've poured back in what we've broken open and poured out. We have to mend it. We have to refill it. And then we can begin to go out in the world and do it again. At the end of May, I made the first stop on my book tour in Phoenix at a church called The Well with my friend Ryan Gear. And I took my twins with me, and we flew out there. I took them to the Phoenix Zoo. It was a bajillion degrees, and it was awful. They had a great time. But as we were getting on the plane to fly out, this always strikes me because this never happens unless I have one of the kids with me. But I'm sitting in my seat, they're sitting beside me, and they're going through the stuff nobody listens to, like about how to evacuate the plane and where the lifeboats are and all that fun stuff, and the oxygen mask. And they do the spiel about, you pull it down, air flows, even if the bag doesn't inflate, you put it on, you begin breathing. And their whole line is, and you put your own oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. The point is so that you don't pass out of oxygen deprivation, and then you're no good to anybody. And then the flight attendant came by and she said, remember, Dad, put your own mask on first. And if you're a parent, you know that very idea of that goes against every bit of hardwiring you have. But even as a parent, if we don't take moments to put back together and pour back in what is broken, open, and poured out for our kids, for our families, for the people we love in our lives, if you're a person who caregives for somebody, if you don't find moments to pour back in and put back together what you've broken open and poured out, if you're that person in your friend group who everybody goes to, and you're the person they call when they need to move the sofa or when their heart's been broke, all of that stuff, you're doing sacred work. And at some point, you have to pause because you have other sacred work to do, which is to put back together and pour back in so that you then are now able to go back out and pour out and be broken open for other people. And then, I think ultimately rest is about learning to recognize the holiness of everything. This is how in Exodus 20 the command is introduced. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. I don't think the point is that there's this out of 7 days a week, there's this one day that's holy. So 52 days a year plus holidays are holy days. I think the point is that by setting aside some time and acknowledging the holiness of that time, we can then be equipped to better recognize that all time is holy. Slowing down and being intentional creates the kind of awareness that allows us to see that, as we talked about last week, the bush has always been burning. The ground has always been holy. It is not that suddenly the ground got some holiness. It has always been holy. And there are moments when we become aware of the holiness of everything, how every inch of creation is dripping with holiness. And then we slide off our shoes and we recognize, oh, this has always been true. And it was true over there, and it's true over there, and it was true up there. It's always been true. And by setting aside some time and saying, this time, I'm going to set aside some sacred time to put myself back together, to heal, to rest, to recharge, to care for myself. It is not to say that then every other time is just sort of secular time where you're not doing, no. It's to say this holy time is preparing and equipping us for the rest of the holy time, which is when we go out into the world and we do the things we've been given to do in the world. We love the people we've been given to love. We serve the people we've been given to serve. We care for the people we've been given to care for. We pour ourselves out for the people we have been given to pour ourselves out for. And that's the point of practice, right? It's about peaking our awareness. It's about raising the antenna. It's about making sure we're really seeing what's going on. And I think taking regular time for rest is key in that. Now, can look different for different people. I'm not saying everybody should have a whole day off every week where you don't do anything that resembles work. If you're like me, you got a family, you got responsibilities, it's really hard to pull that off. But I would just think, do we have, so here's some questions to think about. Do we have a healthy rhythm of work and rest? Like, are you always working? Are you always creating? Are you always thinking? Are you always trying to put, like, every second of every day? Like, have you seen this video that's circulated and around in a reel? And there's this guy who's like, I get up at whatever time in the morning and I do this, and that's day one. And then I do this for the next so many hours, day two. I've already done 2 days when you're having your coffee. And then I'm like, that does not sound healthy at all. It doesn't sound healthy at all. And at the end of everything, when this life is ending, like, yeah, people may say, gosh, they were the hardest worker I ever met. And that's cool. But what about the relationship piece? What about, gosh, it would be cool if they said they were a really healthy person. They had a great work-life balance. Like, wouldn't that be great? Do we recognize that we have limits before we run upon them? This is what usually happens to me. I commit to way too many things. I'm running in way too many directions. I'm busy, creating, doing. And then, because I've pushed my body to its limits, I get sick. And then I am forced to hit pause, because now I can barely hold my head up, because I have allowed myself to get so worn down that now I have some sort of sickness going on that's keeping me and limiting me from what I could be doing. When if I'd just been resting. Do we recognize we have limits? Do we recognize that we aren't endless, boundless energy? That we must pour back in whatever it is we have poured out for other people? It's really not about a day. It's not about a length of time. It's about the intentionality and the self-care. Maybe you don't have a whole day, but maybe you find an hour every day. Or maybe you start small and say, I'm going to have 30 minutes of self-care time every day. Or I'm going to take half a day this one day when I know I can, and I'm not going to feel guilty, and I'm not going to say, gosh, I should be doing X, Y, Z. No. I'm doing this. I'm caring for myself so I can do X, Y, Z later. May we really see this. May we make rest a priority. May it be intentional. And may this practice of rest, if we really, really try, and I mean seriously, what if you just start with, I'm going to take 10 minutes for me, whatever that looks like. However you can begin to baby step it in and allow it to bring a new sense of awareness to you. That when you are more rejuvenated and rested, that you show up better in the world. That you actually have more to give in the moments when you need it. And may you have awareness that all time is actually holy, sacred time. Are you with me, Grace Point? Amen.
I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace.
Will y'all stand with us and sing it?
I kept others at a distance, those who lived life differently, saw the world in right or wrong, but they're all humans just like me. I stepped out and love expanded us and them